So another message I'd like to pass on to all of you is that science and atheism are completely antagonistic to religious thought. That these religious ideas cannot survive in any kind of world where we consistently apply reason and evidence-based reasoning to them. And with that, I will stop right there. And mind you that word down there. Questions? Feel free to ask questions. And typical in my talks, people rarely seem to ask me questions about the material I just covered. And that's perfectly okay. We like questions. You know, we got the scientist type, so feel free to ask anything you want. If it's about what I've been talking about, that's great, but anything else is good.
Professor Myers?
Yes?
What do you teach, what do you study?
Oh, wow. You want
your specific...
Yes. I'm a biologist at the University of Minnesota Morris. My specialties are developmental biology and neuroscience. I teach introductory biology, I teach genetics, I teach development, and I teach neuroscience. We're done? Okay. Yes.
You indicated there's information in the protists, in the Precambrian, strata or whatever source you can give it. But do you have any idea where the information came that the protists had? Is the inference that chemical reactions created what we perceive as information through these random processes that you described, or is there something else operating?
No, I would say there's nothing else operating. It's like Russian dolls, you keep pushing back and you find new stuff going farther back. So protists, eukaryotic microorganisms evolved from prokaryotic organisms. So if we look at bacteria, we find precursors to these processes. And if we go even farther back, we start getting into the murky business of abiogenesis, and we start having to think about chemistry. But I would not argue at all that we have every step worked out. There's a lot of mysteries left. But what we're finding is that using natural processes, explaining things in terms of science, is really, really productive, and it's given us good answers so far. There's no reason to think it won't in the future. Yes?
Yeah, a smart point to this, to begin a debate from a creation, intelligent design standpoint would be God had to create the first cell, because abiogenesis is extremely unlikely. Again, could you give, Dawkins throws out this 10 to the negative 18th figure as far as the likelihood of, in his argument about Junkyard creating a 747. Anyway, could you comment on the possibility of where did the first cell come from?
Yes. Wow, that's a much bigger topic than I've addressed here so far. But I'll take a stab at it. That when you look at cells, what are they? They're chemistry. That everything is chemical. There's no vital forces that we can identify. So in order to get that answer, you have to push back into prebiotic chemistry. There are a whole bunch of different models floating around right now. That, for instance, there's models that say metabolism first, no RNA involved. There's others that say RNA involved first as part of the catalysis in the cell. That's another problem talking about this particular field is it's going all kinds of different directions and trying to sort it out. But basically, the first cell would have not been anything like the cells we see now. Current thinking is that an early cell would have taken DNA. Much of its metabolism would be catalyzed by RNA instead. It would be driven by metabolic proteins that may not even be encoded by DNA, or instead of byproducts of chemical reactions going on, which simplifies the problem greatly, of course. I think that's where it all does come from. Currently, there's lots of people doing chemistry, abiotic chemistry, that's trying to work that out. Again, it's a huge question. What I'd like to do in this, I'll recommend a book to you. It's a book by a guy named Robert Hazen called Genesis, which summarizes the current state of thinking in abiogenesis. don't believe in free will. Free will is a concept built out of ignorance, and I don't think it's appropriate or we can apply. That, yeah, basically it's asking the wrong question. So I don't think it applies at all. Yes?
Well then, if you're not into the abiotic chemistry that much, how excited are you with the prospect of the astronomers finding cells or cellular life forms, say in our solar system, someplace other than the Earth?
Yes, that would answer a lot of questions. If we could go to Mars and find some bacteria-like creatures living there and look at their chemistry, that would be very informative. They got to do it first.
Would you say that the hopeful future of biology is exobiology then?
No, not entirely. You
Okay.
can't depend on it. The people who are doing abiogenesis research are doing really cool stuff with chemistry, and they're working on a lot of things. For instance, they've been finding ribozymes, these enzymes that are made from RNA. They actually work. They can do a lot of the processes themselves. So I think it's a multi-pronged approach. Let's do lots of chemistry. Exobiology would be great, but it's speculative, and we have zero data right now. So we're kind of using our imaginations there. But yeah, I'd love to see Martian bacteria or something out of the Jovian gas clouds or something cool like that. That would revolutionize biology. Oh, you would, yes. In red, yes.
Are you familiar with Nick Lane's work?
Oh, what was his name of his book?
Well, he's actually written three.
Several, and
Yes.
the last one was the one about 10
The
innovations.
10 great, if life ascending, 10 great inventions
Yes.
of life. And he was very careful to say that he was using it in the British and not the American way, which is by invention, he just meant method, or
Yes.
but I wanted to ask you a very particular question in his second book that he wrote, which is Power, Sex, and Death, where he's
Which I
talking.
haven't read yet. Explain it.
Okay, in that book where he does, it's a great description, especially for the person that's interested in the abiotic, the precursors to the cell, talks a lot about cellular possibilities for cellular development, specifically looking at energy generation and the difference between fermentation and then using respiration, what mitochondria do.
Yes.
What I was particularly interested in is where he talks about how we developed the origin of the
Eukaryote, yes.
eukaryote cell, being a fusion of the
Right, two prokaryotes, right. So mitochondria are remnants of ancient prokaryotes that fused with our cells. Yeah, I'll second the donation. Nick Lane is a really good guy to read. Nick Lane is a biochemist who's written a couple of books. This last one that I read, what he does is he takes a molecular pathway apart. He says, for instance, we talk about photosynthesis, and he'll explain where photosynthesis came from. And he can go do this in great detail. And one of the things he does is show you how much of what's going on in basic biochemistry is driven by historical accident, which is, again, telling you design was not involved. There was a lot of chance involved, and then subsequent optimization of pathways to make them more efficient.
I did have a